this one, sorry to say, is very political. I hope, and it's not, by the way, we are not talking about the personalities here. We're just talking about how do we talk about things. So this one is from Anne Waiguru. I just loved it because, and I'm bringing it because it was something I had analyzed. So that's what I'm going to play next. This was the interview she did with Jeff Koinange after there was an Ipsos poll saying that she's considered, I think she was second in a list of the most corrupt politicians. So I'm just going to play a clip of that interview.
I have a naive trust in our institutions. I believe that many people who are in those institutions want to do good and actually doing the best that they can. And if they are, with a clear conscience, they will release the report and I will be exonerated. Now, let me tell you about politics. There are people who will never change their belief, no matter what they are told, which is fine. You understand? Which is fine. But for me, I need it to come out for mostly the women out there who have gone through similar attacks, women who have had, because I think it's really double standards where women are concerned, if you ask me, who have had to go through a lot of maligning or being pushed with all manner of allegations or allegations being trumped up. I would like that report released for those women. I would also want to be released so that the next time a politician or anybody ever imagines that they can actually frame somebody, they will think twice. And I just don't want it released. I actually want action taken. Not on Kafura, because I don't even think she even read that report, by the way. The person who used her, whoever it is who wrote that document.
And you know this person, don't you? You know them very well.
I mean, first of all, you can start even with the lawyers. They've signed the document. So any lawyer who really administered a fake document knowingly, I think there is action that should be taken. And that's the least that we can ask in terms of our justice system.
There's a tweet here I want to read. Monica, do you have it up? Mutahi Ngunyi. He says, Jeff, tell Anne Waiguru to sue the mercenary scientist at Ipsos as well. That one individual, I guess. Yes. And if out of the 791 million in NYS 1, government has recovered 750 million, EACC should release the report on the Kafura affidavit. He also goes on to say, Kafura claimed that she gave me 1 million shillings and I want to sue her for lies.
You see, what happens when you don't release the report is that you hold very many people back. There are people who left their jobs because of that affidavit. And they need to go back to their lives. They need to be cleared to go back to their lives. And if you don't think they should be cleared and they're guilty, then show the evidence and take action. But to leave it hanging, then continuously create this perception. I mean, eventually it actually works to discredit the institutions that are actually mandated to do this investigation. Because the question would be, why would you take 3 years to investigate the Kafura affidavit, for example? Why? I mean, they're investigating nowadays in 2 months, 3 months, and they have charges, you know? Why would it take 3 years unless there is really something that is not proper?
Yeah. One more about NYS and then we can move on.
Thank you.
Nicholas Gumbo. He says, the executive summary report we did on NYS1, he was part of it, clearly states that as much as 10 billion may have been lost. As a matter of fact, NYS2 is somewhat of a misnomer. Most of those individuals who've been arraigned in court in the so-called NYS2 are actually owners and directors of companies we fingered for further investigation in our report. Engineer Gumbo.
You know, you cannot estimate these issues. They are facts. They are given with facts. If you say 791 was lost, you have evidence that 791. I mean, you can't just wake up and say, I estimate that this amount of money was lost. I mean, you need to show that there was money that was given to an institution and that money is gone missing. And if you look at the audit report and if you look at the investigation so far, there was an attempted of 800 and then there was 791 that actually did get lost. This 891 is the one, the 895, no, actually, I think it was 8 something, I don't remember the exact figure. That money we stopped. And that's why they keep saying, oh, she said money wasn't lost and money was lost. That money wasn't lost, the 800. What was lost was 791. But Jeff, I don't want to take this country back to NYS1. I believe that the investigative agencies are looking into those issues every single day, and I'm sure they will bring whoever is responsible to book. Because when it's about justice, it's not about what you think or what you hope to think. I mean, there's somebody who would really want to find me, you know, and I'm sure they're there. I mean, I'm now in politics, and whether you do anything wrong or not, there are people who will create a story, even now, just so that people don't like you and you're not as popular. So I'm not saying that we're doing it so much for myself to be exonerated. There's a whole bunch of people, and also as a principle to set a precedent that we are not fighting corruption by perception. We are fighting corruption by actual facts. You know, you get the facts, you place them on the table, then you take somebody to court. You don't take someone to court based on a perception of what you think or imagine on an estimate you have in your head. Because anyone can, that's subjective, isn't it?
Yeah. Kenya. Sorry, it's so nice. That is the dilemma that even, what's her name? Grace Musila was talking about. That people in power and in institutions are saying one thing that is so convincing that part of us wants to agree with what they are saying, but the other part of us is like, no, something is not right. Now, what we are trying to do is to help Kenyans identify what is not right. One of the things I wanted to say that is striking about the way she spoke, and that's why it has been very hard to refute her as a member of the public. Institutions. You know, she talks about institutions a lot. In fact, she started with institutions and ended with institutions. So she would say something like, the institutions need to write a report so that I can be exonerated. What else did she say about institutions? That institutions are exact in their data, so they should be giving us facts, not estimates. And even when Mutahiguni is saying, yeah, in that tweet, that yeah, she should sue people. Basically, she's saying she should take them to court. He is saying that she should take them to court, which is an institution. And actually, the point I want to drive at is this, that one of the ways in which messages are blocked from questioning by the Kenyan public is by mentioning institutions. Immediately someone mentions an institution, people back off. They say, okay, if the ministry said, if the court said, if the school said, if there's a certificate, if the church, you know, when institutions say it, then it means it's off the table for discussion. That's what happens in Kenya. And she knows this, maybe not consciously, but instinctively. She knows that if she keeps on evoking the institutions, people will not question what she's saying. Okay, so that presents a difficulty for us, the public. It means that we have to find a way of getting around the institutions to address the issue that is there for us. And the issue is that there's corruption and that our taxes are being stolen, and there's, you know, it's a waste of our resources for our resources to be going to people's pockets. Yeah, but immediately someone says institution, pap, we stop. It's almost like saying, in fact, which is what you're saying, I'm exonerated. As long as the institution, and that's the other thing, she was basically saying, as long as no institution has accused me, then I have, what am I being accused of? I'm innocent. When we are told institutions, we say, okay, you know, we are waiting for the institutions to do their work. And that's, let me tell you, it's such a big problem for Kenya, because why do you think she's so confident in the institutions? She knows the institutions well enough to know she's safe. So basically what I'm saying is, this is not about whether she's innocent or what, but basically what I'm pointing at is strategies for political or public conversations, because this course is about public conversations. That is one of the strategies that gets Kenyans silenced. People invoke institutions, and most of us can't afford a lawyer to go to court and sue. Others, we know that the court will take so long before a judgment is read. So institutions are things which are basically out of the reach of most of us Kenyans. So when somebody says, I'm waiting for the report from the institution to exonerate me, they're not necessarily saying the truth. They're not talking about the truth. They are talking about institutional exoneration. And that is not equivalent to the truth. They are not equivalent. So here we are talking about what language does. We're not even saying whether what she's saying is true or not. We're talking about what language does. And by the way, in fact, I think at the bottom of that same video, there's a member of public who says, this woman is just the queen of politics. She knows how to sort herself out. Yeah, she does, by shutting us out of the conversation, by invoking institutions which we have no power over, but which she has access to. Then she's able to cut the conversation, and we are left not being able to ask any questions. It's brilliant. I just love it. Remember what I said about conversation? We enter conversation with the assumption that both sides want to engage. But what is happening is that power shuts down the conversations by one, invoking institutions, two, insulting, embarrassing. You know, they use all these tactics to make sure that we are taken aback. Like you're saying, we are taken aback, and then we are like, okay, you know, you have to first deal with your own pride and dignity that has been assaulted, and then now have to think, okay, how do I respond to an insult? Do I insult back like Joe Biden, or what do I do? What I'm saying is that what happens is that the public is the people in power and institutions use the same signs, the same language that we use, but sorry, they are creating different signifieds. What they are signifying and what they mean is different from what we think they mean. And even when we discover what they actually mean, we are willing to play along with it because they are using our language. And that flatters us. That's another thing. It flatters us. We are so used to being ignored. So when somebody uses a word that we always use, we feel flattered, and then we play along, even though they mean something different from what it means for us. And I would say the hustler brings that's what has happened with that word. And we'll talk about the source of that word, how it developed, and how come it's being used like this today. Then I have not yet quite talked about this, but I'm going to talk about it when I show the next clip, that one of the tactics they use for silencing our side of the conversation is by removing the context. So if you saw, one of the things I kept doing, especially when I was debating CBC, is to provide context. It's to say, if you're saying this is about talent, let me tell you what it will mean in the classroom. So the way these narratives work, these public narratives, is when the institutions, when they use our signifiers in a certain way, they make sure that we don't understand the context, that the context is never brought up, because the context is what will refute what they are saying. So like for me, many times I kept on being told that's irrelevant, you're bringing other issues. That's a very common Kenyan tactic. They say that's not, you're bringing up, that's not relevant. When you start saying, but the context will mean this. So it's to silence or remove the context is another tactic. The other tactic is to assert authority and faith in institutions, which we've seen with this second instance especially. You keep invoking institutions as an authority of truth, and maybe even the only holder of truth, and you keep asserting faith in the institutions as a way of preventing the public from asking you questions. So it's a way of silencing people. And the irony is that we don't have faith in the institutions. So that's the struggle that that's what we are struggling with. You know, somebody will be talking about institutions, but the reason why it doesn't sit well with us is because we don't have faith in those institutions. And this person is talking about the institutions as if they are perfect. And that's the clash. And the job of us people who have got an education is to point out to Kenyans that that dissonance in your mind is being created by the fact that somebody is citing the very institutions she worked with as the evidence that she has done the right thing. How do we come to terms with that? That's a political question. So that is a big part of the problem with our political life, is that most of the time we don't believe what the government is saying. And even when we don't, the politicians cite the same institutions as a way of disempowering us from continuing the conversation. And that's my fourth point about the tactics. The other tactic is disempowerment. The public is disempowered from continuing conversations by demands for evidence, by fact-checking, for example, by institutional endorsements, like what we've just seen. There are other smaller tactics, like when we are told to speak for ourselves or to provide or to provide solutions. Especially, I remember when I was talking about CBC, the demand for a solution was very disempowering, because imagine I'm being asked for a solution. I'm just a lecturer. I'm being asked for a solution next to a guy who is saying the textbooks have been sent, the money has been allocated, the teachers have been trained. It makes me not look like I have nothing to say. And yet I think I had something important to say. But that's how you're disempowered. You're disempowered by being shown that even if you think what you think, you can't implement it. And you're talking about a government guy who can implement, or who is saying he's implementing, and we never checked if he was. So the disempowerment is a very effective way in which language is used to assert power. And then the others are fallacies. Fallacies are weaknesses in thinking. So, for example, in this Waiguru conversation, we see one of the fallacies is that institutions equal truth. That whatever an institution says, whatever a report says, must be the equivalent of truth. But truth is bigger than institutions and reports and whatever. There are other things on which we should be able to engage in conversation, but those other ways are often refuted by saying we don't have the facts. Where did you get those facts from? Do you have the evidence? Has there been any confirmation from an institution? You know, because the fallacy is that if it came from an institution, it's right. If it was said in the media, it's right. If it was taught in a school, it's right. But institutions don't have a monopoly of the truth. And truth, as I said, we come to it through conversation. A conversation not where people are asserting power, but where there is goodwill and honesty, and we are all engaged in a search for the truth.